Chapter 3, Cultural Adjustment. Cultural adjustment on any international education program, regardless of length of time, is complex and personal to each individual, but there are some things you can do to prepare. My initial suggestion would be to get ready to be uncomfortable, but also know your limits. It can really present a lot of challenges to the way in which you look at the world and the way the world looks at you. Set some very clear goals. Be willing to adjust your expectations as the program goes along and anticipate both highs and lows. As I said, it's a challenge, so there will be moments where you feel really on top of it and other times where you feel really challenged. What I can say most about cultural adjustment is on the front end, some things you can do. It's your job to research where you're going. You're going to another place, and therefore, as a visitor, it's your job to know about them. So there are some great international news sources, the New York Times, the LA Times, BBC, The Economist. Read up on what's going on in that country. Independent travel guides, they do still exist. You can go to any Barnes & Noble or online and find Lonely Planet or Frommer's and buy them in either electronic or paper form. And I would also suggest maybe checking out some of the literature of the host country. Who are some primary writers of that country, and find translations, if they're not written in English, some kind of key books. You can always talk to returned study abroad students or students that have been to that location and find out about their experiences. And also you can always talk to LMU exchange and international students from that host country. We've got a lot of international students on this campus. Use them as a resource as well. Things that you should know about that host society. This is the kind of basic information that you should have at least some inkling of. The names of political leaders and parties, major religions or spiritual beliefs of that country, hot topics in the news in that country, their type of government, maybe their year of independence and their circumstances, the economic conditions, cultural diversity, languages and immigration trends, and maybe their class structure. That will all give you a good snapshot into that country. Things you should know about home before you go abroad. What is the role of the United States in that host country's history, their economy, and their politics? The role of the United States in current world conflicts. There's a great text that you can look up on international perspectives on U.S. Americans. If you just Google that, you'll find ways in which people might perceive us and think about what some of those perceptions might be. U.S. American views and values are not totally universal. That's something to keep in mind. And remember your role as a student ambassador to the world. So when you're thinking about culture and cultural adjustment, often people equate culture to things that you can see. So there's surface culture, and we're using the metaphor of the iceberg. Surface culture is what is observable and what is visible when you arrive in a location. Deep culture is all of those invisible parts of a culture, their values, their norms, their belief systems. And that usually is much, much larger and more profound than just the things you might see on the surface. So examples of surface culture are going to be things like clothing, tipping customs, food and gestures, personal distance, works of art, methods of worship, and degrees of eye contact. Deeper, more profound culture that you find that the surface culture is a product of are things like their views on equality, their religious beliefs, time management, rules of politeness, their relationship with nature, attitudes towards sexuality, and concepts of beauty. Some ways in which you can empower yourself is to check out globalscholar.us. It is an online course for study abroad that is managed by NAFSA, which is our International Educators Association. It's free. You just go on there and you can take it, and it's a way in which you can empower yourself in the process of preparing to go abroad. You can also get a guide, Maximizing Study Abroad, a student's guide to strategies for language and culture learning and use. It is put out by the University of Minnesota Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition. It is almost free on Amazon. I promise you, if you go to Amazon and get it, it's literally like 99 cents. So all you have to do is pay for the shipping. I certainly found it as a great tool over the years that I've been in international education in preparing students. So in cultural adjustment, there are some stages of adaptation that you'll need to keep in mind. There's the high before your departure. You're so excited, you're getting ready to go. You are ready to experience everything that this new place has to offer for you. There's the super high of your arrival. I mean, you have just gotten off the plane, everything is brand new, everything is exciting, and that's a super, super high. And then there's the realization that maybe not everything meets what your perception thought it might meet. Or maybe there are some challenges that you hadn't expected. Or maybe you expected them intellectually and now you're kind of feeling them emotionally. That's the low. And that's a pretty typical spectrum. And it's just ways in which you digest the heaviness of the location you might be that you might be there for. There's also a middle, and that's the adaptation phase. That's where you come back up. And that process of highs and lows and middle, highs and lows and middle may happen several times. And all of that is very, very normal. That's ways in which you adjust culturally. By the way, this happens when you come back to the United States as well. So with relation to that, homesickness to a certain degree is normal. Homesickness for family and friends, homesickness for food, homesickness for language and culture. I personally would say verbally agree with your family how often and through what ways you're going to keep in touch, and stick to it. Try to, if you say I'm going to talk to you every other day or every third day, try to stick to that. Being unhappy or frustrated with a program detail, it's hot, or our housing is old, or something like that, sometimes is cultural adjustment in disguise. So sometimes what you're dealing with is just the reality of a location and less a program detail that's fixable. So keep that in mind. If you find yourself frustrated about a detail, stop, take stock of where you are at that moment and think, well, am I really just struggling with this location?